amidst the drama that occurred in Parliament yesterday, well, there are conversations around, budget and economic management policy of government that has to be passed. They're having conversations around the appropriation bills. And there were dramatic scenes in Parliament yesterday. And my colleague Komla Kuche is on the line, and he's going to bring us up to speed on exactly what transpired in Parliament and what that means for all of us going forward and preparing for 2021. Hello, Komla, if you can hear me, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Patrick.
What exactly is the state of affairs, in Parliament?
Well, speaking with you now, what I can say is the attempt to have the e-levy bill passed yesterday, that process halted, and I'm sure you've seen the pictures. Yes, late last night into this dawn, were reported of the confusion, the fight, and chaos that rocks the House. But let me just give a genesis of how it transpired yesterday. One, at the committee, the minority had, prior to even consideration of the committee, stated that they were strictly against the levy. At the meeting yesterday, they said that the chairman of the committee, Kweku Kwating, had wanted the bill to be taken under a certificate of urgency. So when it appeared on the committee, the consideration for him was to bring it to the floor for it to be passed under a certificate of urgency. Well, the minority resisted it, and then he decided to put it to vote. When he put it to vote, the allegation yesterday was that the chairman, who did not have an original vote, had to cast his vote. They subjected it, in terms of the preparation of the report, to the plenary to vote. Then they voted, the minority, 12 members, and then 12 members from the majority side as well. Outstanding would be the chairman, because they are a 25-member committee. So the chairman of the committee had to vote for the majority. So then the minority lost as a committee. And in preparing the report, it was captured that yes, indeed, the minority stated their position, and then they did not go for it. They said they were not going to go for it. The minority, after that, came to address the press to tell us that this and this transpired at the committee level, and that they were serving notice that even though they have lost, or they had lost at the committee level, they were going to deploy all arsenals to reject the budget at the plenary. So yesterday, they brought the report to the House. But prior to bringing the report to the House, I know a lot of people will be asking, I'm sure maybe that might even be one of the questions, where the speaker was. Yesterday, when they had convened again in Parliament, there was a question from the Banda MP, Ahmed Ibrahim, who is the Deputy Minority Whip. He was asking what is the agenda for the day, or what was the House going to be dealing with, especially when the Business Committee had not met in the sense that on a Friday into Saturday when they met, they knew the only thing that was left for them to do was the e-levy, and that was what was also communicated to the Speaker. The Speaker came into the chamber and was also expecting that it was just going to be the e-levy. In fact, there was some back and forth from both sides of the House on that issue that was raised by Ahmed, where they both said yes, they knew the circumstances, but then because the Business Committee had not met, they needed to improvise to be able to find an agenda for the meeting, the sitting yesterday. Then the other paper came. When the other paper came, he had other items on it, but until the Speaker kept asking, where is the e-levy? Where is the e-levy? And then it was still at the preparation stage, the committee level, where they were doing the back and forth and subjecting it to scrutiny before a final report was going to be presented. So that was the genesis of everything until it came to the floor. But when it came to the floor, the motion was moved by the chairman of the committee, Kweku Kwarteng. When he moved the motion, Mahama Yariga, who is the Boku Central MP, sought to shoot or arrest the process prematurely by indicating that the bill as it was brought to the House did not come under a certificate of urgency, and that he didn't see why the House or the Speaker was going to allow them to consider it and then get it passed through a certificate of urgency. He cited a lot of examples and made a very strong case that no, it is a breach of their own rules and the Constitution to allow it. It didn't come as such. By that time, it was the second Deputy Speaker who was in the chair, Andrew Esiama, who was in the chair. A back and forth ensued, arguments from both sides. And when the arguments ensued, then the Speaker said, well, there is nothing wrong with the position that he chairing together with the House was going to take, and so therefore they should go ahead. Then they moved ahead, and the Speaker put the question that as much as I'm in favor of the motion, should say aye. Then the ayes shouted. And again, he said those who were against it should shout and say no. They also did. Well, both sides did shout as loud as they could. But then the second Deputy Speaker said he was giving it to the ayes. When he said he was giving it to the ayes, then the Honorable Muntaka, who is the minority chief whip, stood up and said he was calling for division. Division here means that the Speaker has taken a decision with respect to the voice vote, and that they were going to call for a division because there was confusion as to who actually won with respect to the voice vote. And if it's a division, then it's a simple but a complex rule. By so doing, the Speaker needs to clear the lobby. Clearing the lobby meant that there were ministers or other people who were in the chamber who should not be. So the Speaker would ask them to go out, and all the MPs would be asked to go out, and then they will count them by their lists, and they will enter into the chamber. Then the Speaker could put the question again.
Well, Komla, if you can hold on for me, I think that sort of gives us an idea of what happened in Parliament, the background to, I'm sure those of you that are looking at the screens now, the chaos that typically we don't, ascribe to our citizens in Parliament. Komla, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on that. I suspect you keep monitoring what's going on in Parliament, and if there are any other issues, we will come back to you for some updates on that. Let me come back into the studio. Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini, you are the Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Were you in Parliament last night?
Of course, Patrick, I was. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
And good morning to my brother.
I also have here this morning Mr. Georgia Isi-Boateng, who is the Communications Director for the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO. Very good friend of mine as well. So I'm excited to have both of you this morning. And clearly, this is one of those contentious issues that, and I describe you both as government, because again, Parliament is an essential organ of government. It's not a matter of who's a minority, who's a majority. The issue of contention now being the e-levy, again, it's not going to be paid by supporters of government or supporters of the NDC. So I think within that context, Honorable Suhuyini, I want to find out from you, your own views, what you saw last night, and why we had to get to that point.
Well, thank you very much. I think that first of all, we need to understand that democracy comes at a cost.
Right.
And we are all enjoined to, at every point in time, with all legitimate force, defend the constitution that we have chosen to use as one that will guide our governance and entrench our democracy. And so, yes, some of those spectacles that you see in Parliament can be disturbing, but we must celebrate the opportunity for us as a people to have representatives who, us enjoined by the 1992 Constitution and by our own anthem, will do everything possible to either uphold the 1992 Constitution or resist oppressors' rule. Our anthem says we must resist oppressors.
Were you being oppressed?
So
did you feel oppressed in Parliament yesterday?
Clearly, our democracy is in danger. In fact, I listened to a press conference that was organized recently by Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo in relation to how DCs, MMDCs, who were elected, who were nominated by the president, got confirmed in some parts of the country. And you are in the media. You saw some of the shenanigans that the government engaged in just to get these DCs confirmed. Those things they engaged in were not democratic. They were not pleasant. And democracy is not about winning all the time. And so when you lose, you gracefully accept defeat. Look, this whole thing started when the minority group in Parliament decided, because of stated reasons, that we're going to reject the budget policy of government. Now that Friday, clearly, when the majority or the MPP that, in my view, is not democratic and has not demonstrated its democratic tendencies for a long time now, saw that they were going to lose if they stayed in the chamber to vote, they created confusion and walked out. Well, it did not stop the House from carrying on with business. And so, as a group, we stayed on and then voted against the budget policy of government and got it rejected. Then they came on Tuesday and debased all tenets of democracy in the things that they did, with one of them presiding. People criticized it, people condemned it, but they can't seem to be bothered. Look, interpretations, we are told, must not be absurd. It must be logical. It must be clear.
Interpretations here meaning
interpretations of laws, interpretations of regulations must not be absurd. So, despite all the attempts to explain away what happened when they sought to reinstate the budget policy that was rejected by, the minority group, watchers of democracy and lovers of democracy clearly, saw through the undemocratic, approach that was used. And yesterday, a similar attempt was being used. Let me just take maybe viewers through the processes of Parliament as far as this matter is concerned.
Briefly for it.
Briefly. So, when there's a motion, and the motion is debated, and the Speaker calls for a vote, you can use voice vote, you can use the head count, and you can use secret ballots. Now, in this case, the procedural motion was moved and seconded. And there were objections as to whether even the motion should be taken on certificate of emergency. Because by the practice of the House, the memo that is accompanying the bill is what determines whether the bill should be considered under certificate of emergency or not.
Right.
And Parliament can do so when the Speaker is referring the bill to the committee after Parliament determines that the bill is of an urgent nature and must be considered under certificate of emergency. Those didn't happen. Not the memo from the President and not the plenary or the Speaker's referral. So at the committee level, the argument was that the committee didn't even have the mandate to determine the bill under certificate of emergency, because the President in his memo didn't say it should be done so. Parliament, when we're referring the bill to the committee, didn't say it should be done so. So it was at that stage that the Speaker called for a voice vote on whether the committee did right by considering the bill under certificate of emergency. Now, the voice vote, you know, according to the speaker, went for the ayes. And our minority chief whip rose on a point of order, which is allowed by our standing orders, to challenge the speaker's call and sought to call for division. And there are procedures when it comes to division. And when I said interpretations must be logical and not absurd, you are presiding.
Right.
You call for a voice vote. And then you determine that the ayes have it. And then your call is challenged. Now, division seeks to determine the voices that took part in the vote. That's what division seeks to do. That is why in the process of going through division, after your challenge, you are asked to clear the lobby. The clearing the lobby means you take out people who may be in the plenary but are not entitled to vote, because ministers are allowed to be in the plenary.
Right.
So at the time you call the voice vote the first time, they are not cleared. So we are not able to tell if they voted or not.
Right.
So by division,
you are
the
removing
second
the
voice
aliens.
vote, you remove those alien people who may have contributed to the voice vote. And then you call a second voice vote, which he did. And when that second voice vote is also challenged, you then go into counting each side to determine the voice that is louder than the other.
Okay.
Simplicity. You are counting the voices to determine the voice which is louder than the other, the ayes or the noes. Now, at the time you called the voice vote, you did not take part in the voice vote because you were presiding. So if it gets to counting the voices to determine which is louder, you cannot seek to come down
yourself
and be counted. Because when you were sitting as a presiding member, you were not, by our Constitution 104(2), allowed to take part in the voice vote. And that is why you didn't take part in the voice vote. So how then do you get counted when there is a contention over the voice vote? There's contention over the voice vote that you didn't take part in. The counting is seeking to determine the voices that were louder,
What
the yes or the no.
circumstances led to him having to preside over the proceedings rather than the speaker himself?
Thank you.
Well, by our Constitution, again, and our standing orders, it is clear. And that is why we have three speakers. The speaker, the first deputy, and the second deputy. And by our standing orders and the Constitution, when the speaker is absent, the deputy speaker, presides. Now, again, that is another absurdity there. So the speaker was absent yesterday. The deputy speaker, the first deputy speaker, therefore was presiding. So by the standing orders and by the Constitution, clearly, if you are interpreting it, it means that the deputy speaker can only preside when the speaker is absent, or when the speaker, calls him to preside, but even in that case, will not be in the chamber. So how then was the deputy speaker, who was present, supposed to be absent at some point and present at the same time? Because when he attempted to ask the second deputy speaker to preside, he was indicating to the House his absence. Now the speaker himself, let us also be very sincere about some of these things. The speaker hasn't been well for a long time now. He's been under the weather for a while.
Right.
In fact, you can check the Hansard for Friday, last Friday. The speaker, and I don't know if I have his permission to say this, but I think it is important that it is said. The speaker last Friday indicated his willingness to attend the funeral of Ama Benyado on Saturday at Gomwa. And he said it on the floor that if the House wanted to sit on Saturday, he will not be part of it because he wants to be part of the funeral of Ama Benyado. Patrick, guess what? On Saturday, the speaker couldn't go on medical grounds. So a team had to represent the speaker at Gomwa. I was there. The speaker couldn't go, even though he had advertised in his intention to be there. Again, yesterday, even in that ill health, in that state of ill health, he came to, the house. He opened the house. And like your reporter said, consistently, he was asking them to bring the e-levy. Because when we were rising on Friday, we all were under the impression that the business for today, Monday, was going to be on the e-levy and nothing else. And that is why Ahmed Banda, the deputy whip, even in the morning, raised preliminary objections about some of the things that were on the order paper as things that were not programmed for, and that the business committee didn't sit. And so there was no business before the House that day. Yesterday. Okay. But again, in the magnanimity of the speaker, he even overruled that and said, look, let's adopt the order paper as the business for the day. Okay. And the order paper contained the e-levy.
Honorable Suhuyini, if you can just hold on for me. So George, you are not in Parliament.
No.
But I suspect you have seen what has transpired. I suspect as well that you've had the opportunity, not only as an actor of government, but as an ordinary Ghanaian, to also follow what it is that transpired in Parliament. I'm an ordinary Joe, and I'm wondering if I saw the images I saw on television, for example, and given the understanding that Honorable Suhuyini, who was in Parliament, has sort of canvassed before us, are you worried?
Good morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning to the Honorable Suhuyini. Good morning to our viewers. Yes, partly worried. I said partly because we've seen such things in other jurisdictions as far as debating issues in Parliament are concerned. Sometimes are heated.
But we are the example of what not to do. We've been the example of what not to do.
Thank you.
Right, in the last 30 years or so.
What we're saying is that sometimes it gets so heated that some of these things become unavoidable.
Right.
He said something, and so if you're saying resist oppressors rule, so there's a psyche that some people are trying to oppress us, trying to circumvent the process. Okay, and so we are not going to allow that to happen. Not under our watch. That is the psyche of the minority then. And the majority also feels, no, we are getting the rules of engagement. In what in God's name prevented the speaker from occupying the seat? Because all of us knew that Monday, the e-levy was a key matter. And so why was he not in the chair?
His infirmity is not enough grounds?
No, okay, but no, if that is the premise. And again...
He was in the chair for more than 2 hours.
Thank you.
He didn't bring the most important bill.
Thank you. I understand at that stage the committee was considering, and they must, adopt it and then bring it to the plenary, right?
Right.
And so processes must be followed. And so they had not finished with their process. If they finished, then they table it before the General House and the Speaker takes charge. And so that was the circumstance.
That's not true.
That they had not finished?
Yeah, that's not true. Go and check the time your reporters reported that the committee had finished their decision. It was before the House even started sitting.
We will get to Kamla to verify that. But Suhuyini, allow him to.
I'm still worried the Speaker was not in the chair. It doesn't matter what, because of the circumstances.
Does that change the color of the outcome of the conversation for you anyway?
It does.
Right.
You see, permit me to read Article 95 of the Constitution. There shall be a Speaker of Parliament who shall be elected by the members of Parliament from among persons who are members of Parliament or who are qualified to be elected as members of Parliament. 2, the Speaker shall vacate his office. A, if he becomes a Minister of State or a Deputy Minister of State, right? Now, that is 95.
George, if we can shift the Constitution
yes.
so that we don't interfere with the microphone.
Thank you. Then I go to 96.3. 96.3. I'm reading this for a purpose. The provision of Clause 2 of Article 95 of this Constitution shall apply in the case of a Deputy Speaker. And 96 talks about Deputy Speakers.
Right.
Listed. There shall be 2 Deputy Speakers of Parliament who shall be elected by the members of Parliament from among the members of Parliament, and both of whom shall not be from the same political party. I brought this for a reason. Now, the same Constitution says something, Article 104.2, that he quoted. The Speaker shall have neither an original nor a custom vote. Okay? Yes. We have only one Speaker in the House. Okay? That is the elected. The first and second deputy speakers are members of parliament. Okay, they are members of parliament, so they have a responsibility to represent their people. That's why I'm supporting those who are pushing for the constitutional interpretation of these clauses. Okay, he represents the people of Bakwai. He represents, the second one represents the people of Fomena. So you were saying, at a critical point when a bill like the e-levy that is affecting the Ghanaian, every Ghanaian, the people of Bakwai do not have any right to so let their voice be heard, because at that time, the speaker himself, for whatever reason, is not in the chair, and their representative is the one acting in his stead. And so he loses that responsibility to speak for his people. Let's go to the court for the interpretation of that. It cannot be the case. Because the framers of the Constitution, that's why I read 95 and then 2 and then
a quick question to clarify a point you just made.
Because they will refer you to that point.
Is there a rationale for the Constitution to make provisions for the Speaker not to have a casting vote or not to have an honorary vote? Is there a rationale in that?
Definitely. There should be a rationale for that.
Okay.
Now, and the main reason is that the Speaker himself, the Speaker, is not a member of Parliament.
Yes.
The Speaker is
the
not
speaker,
a member,
the speaker
because
is not.
The Constitution says when a member of Parliament is elected the Speaker, he ceases to be a member of Parliament.
So there's a reason I'm asking you that question, because again we have to get to some
logical
I'm with you.
You know I know your brain a lot. So.
if there's a reason for which the Speaker should not have a vote, it is to bring some level of impartiality in the decisions that the Speaker makes. Okay,
and to allow members of Parliament to do their work.
Fair point.
Thank you.
The question then is, when you have somebody else other than the main speaker, so to speak, who is acting in his capacity, that person is cloaked with the powers of the speaker. But at that material moment, he ceases to be just any ordinary member. He may not have the same rights on the floor of Parliament as Honorable Sweeney, for example.
Patrick, you remember
and if that is the
Joe
case,
Joe Osei-Usu said in one of their sitting that he was not the speaker, and it engendered argument and brouhaha in the house.
Right.
He said that.
Right.
And he was right.
Great. So it is based off that I'm trying to put across to you.
Yeah.
That if we cannot accept that view and somewhat reject the outcome that he cannot be casting a vote. I mean, it's not to say he's not representing the interest of the people of the parliament.
Yes, that is why I say we need the Supreme Court interpretation to bring finality to
this one. All right.
You get it. Let me make my submission.
So you finish. Let him finish. Let him finish, and then I'll come to you.
You get it. So yes, let's allow the processes to go through. And this was a very important bill. Okay, or issue that is put before the House. And he said the Speaker waited for about 2 hours, and it wasn't, for whatever reason. Maybe the majority leader will be able to give us the explanation, or your brother, one of the fine reporters from Parliament, will be able to get us through those nuances that led to that. But I thought yesterday it was incumbent, unless, of course, they can tell us that there was a medical situation. I thought it was incumbent on the Speaker. He had promised all of us that he would put the nation over and above the parochial interest of partisan issues. He's told everybody.
And we have been told that he was he was not well.
Yes, so I thought yesterday, why was he not in the chair?
He was not well, George.
No, unless you tell me there was an emergency.
He was not well. At least that's what we understand from
If there was an emergency, then that is it. That is why it's bringing these issues. I anticipated or envisioned that one day the first deputy speaker will get up and let the second take. And we saw it yesterday. In fact, when the thing started, some of the arguments we made was that, look, so after the second deputy speaker votes, will it be right for the first deputy speaker to say, for whatever nature's call or whatever, he would want to leave the chair, okay, and then let the second take over, so that he will get the opportunity then to go and vote? Would that be at variance with the tenets of the Constitution?
Would you say Parliament is being ineffective?
No. Parliament is having a challenge, okay? Parliament is having a challenge in matters relating to interpretation of this constitution. And I am saying that the framers of this constitution knew, if they anticipated that the first or second deputy speaker will not have original or casting vote, they would have made that reference implicitly in this constitution, as they did for the deputy speaker, you know, if you get ministerial appointment and all that, okay? And they were also apt in saying, once you are elected, Dua Ajaho is a clear example. A member of parliament was elected speaker, and he had to vacate the seats, okay? And take up the full responsibility of a speaker of the house. Number 3 man, Abawin lost the numbers, you get it? The number 3 man of the land. And so please, let's allow processes to go. The numbers are there, 137, 137. And then there is an independent candidate who has opted to be aligning somewhere.
George,
let the speaker take the chair. Let's put this thing on the table and let's vote.
In the interest of your government,
yes.
The executive, I should say,
Yes.
and in the interest of the people of this country.
Yes, Patrick.
Will you go to the Supreme Court and seek an interpretation of these provisions?
I understand somebody.
Given that,
yes, I understand somebody's gone there already.
Could potential somebody's there already.
Yes, I understand somebody is there already. But if whatever it is, I would love to go. Because there must be finality to the interpretation of this. Otherwise,
fine.
We'll be playing
to the extent that you indicate that we have to go to the Supreme Court. We shall all wait and see the outcome of that. But Honorable Suhuyini, before you say anything else, so I'm going to move the conversation a little further. To look at the contentious issue of the e-levy itself, right? But say a minute on what's happening, so we can look at the substantive issues that you disagreed with, you know, at the plenary, you know, as members in the opposition, and what that means for us going forward.
Well, I hope I can do that in a minute. But first of all, it is important that we put some things in perspective. Yeah. Yes, we have 2 deputy speakers. Nobody says that they are speakers. But if you look at Order 7 of our standing orders, it clearly says that the person presiding shall be a speaker. So anytime, even when we choose one of us to preside, that person is speaker. That is the simple meaning of
for that particular
function you are performing. You are speaker, and you are clothed with all the authorities of speaker. That is why we don't rise for the member of parliament for Bekwai. But we rise
when he sits in the chair,
when he is presiding. So you cannot enjoy the privileges and seek to still keep, you know, some of the what do you call it, consequences
of an MP. All right.
You can't. If you enjoy and it is by choice. Let's remember, you can actually be nominated to be deputy speaker and you turn it down because maybe you want to serve your constituents fully. You are allowed to turn it down because you want to have all your rights as member of parliament for Bekwai. But immediately you accept that responsibility of being first deputy speaker, you must know that certain privileges will be extended to you, and those privileges will also cost you certain opportunities as member of parliament for Bekwai. It is clear. And look, when he says that Speaker Bagwin promised us to be non-partisan. Yes. And that is why I indicated to you that but for his magnanimity, there wouldn't have even been a sitting yesterday. Because by our standing orders and practices, the business for the day is usually determined by a business committee. Nothing of that sort took place on Friday, and nothing of that sort took place on Monday. There was no business committee meeting. And so when we came to the plenary, the argument was made that we had no business, and so we should go home. Because it is the business committee that usually will sit to program the business for the day. It didn't happen. So the deputy, chief whip, when he raised this issue, because Bagwin has, the attitude towards helping governance, not just this, but governance in general, he said, look, yes, we are masters of our own, operations in parliament. So yes, there should have been a business committee. They should have programmed business for the day, but they didn't. But we have the order paper that has indicated business they want us to do. So let's adopt it. Right. That is patriotic. That is not obstructing government business. He could have used that as opportunity to say, then I'm adjourning the house because there's no business. But he sat there, even in his ill health, for 2 hours or more and kept asking for the most important business for the day. It wasn't coming, and so he had to leave. And when you look at Article 101, again, it says that the deputy speakers will act in the absence of the speaker.
Right.
Logically, what it tells you is that when the speaker is absent, a deputy speaker, maybe the first one, will preside. So the only time the second deputy can also preside is when the first deputy is absent.
Is absent, yes.
So how then do you claim to be absent when you are actually in the chamber voting as first deputy? And again, like the point I made, the division is to distill the voices. That is why you first clear the lobby in the second voice vote call.
Right.
So that you can count the number of voices to tell which one was louder than the other.
Than the other, yeah.
And at the time the voice vote was called, you were presiding and didn't vote. And in any case, on 1st December, Patrick, 1st December, go and listen to him. The same, Joe Osei-Owusu, go and listen to him. His argument when he interpreted 104.2 was that, in fact, he put it that to make things clear and put it beyond any doubt, that he is counted as member of parliament for Bekwai to form quorum, and that he didn't vote. And that by the definition of 104.2, when you are presiding, you don't vote. He said it. And so on the Tuesday, they engage in that charade of setting aside the rejection of the budget policy. He said he didn't vote. There was reason why he was, arguing that he didn't vote, that he was only counted to form quorum.
Right.
Why then does he want to change his mind now and take part in a voting process that he originally was not part of? That is rigging the process. No. Because when you call for the voice vote, you were not part of the voice vote. Now we are counting the voices to determine which is louder, and you want to be counted. That is double voting. How? Because you see, the member of parliament for Fomina was part of the voice vote. So we can assume that he voted when the voice vote was called. So you can count him when you are counting the voices. You were presiding and you didn't vote with the voice vote. Now you want to come and add your voice when your voice was not part of the voice vote.
I understand what has transpired in Parliament.
So clearly,
if I'm understanding George properly, well,
but
someone is going to.
If you allow me to end on this, if you allow me to end on this,
Honorable, just give me a minute. I need to run quickly.
Let me take my 1 minute
I'll come back to you.
I'll end because
definitely. So as already you can see, this is getting heated. Anytime the issue in Parliament comes up, it's not easy, particularly regarding this e-levy. But just a quick recap of what you have, in our newspapers this morning. A lot of conversations around what's happening, in Parliament. If you take the Daily Graphic, for example, on the front page. You have influx of goods, low patronage, and this is referring to the Yuletide season. You have Finance Committee approving e-levy. We shall come back and look at that, in detail off the back of the developments in Parliament last night. If you take a Ghanaian Times, you have COVID-19 variant that is spreading in the country. Ghana tightens travel restrictions. You grab a copy of that newspaper, you see all of those details in there. The Daily Guide newspaper, we have on the front page a suggestion that it looks like Bawumia will break the 8. That's on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. Well, I'm not sure Honorable Alassane Suhuyini will agree to that.
I don't mind.
Security Minister meets Boku factions, and then you have, outcome from the Congress of the New Patriotic Party also captured in the Daily Statesman newspaper. You have police kill 5 assassins at Gomoa and arrest another 38 in Asamankese. If you get a copy of that newspaper, you should get the full details of that story. And one that is of interest to me personally, claims of unaccounted 269 million Ghana cedis appear to be false, that's according to the Trade Ministry. You want the details of that, you can catch that newspaper. Find the newspaper. 3,309 murders recorded in 6 years. That's quite scary. Also on the front page of the Finder newspaper, the NPP internal elections will start in January, and that is according to the General Secretary, John Boadu. And so those are the major headlines for your various newspapers. I will go back and pick up the Daily Graphic and look at a story. We'll look at the issue of the e-levy and look at it, in a lot more detail. But before that, you had made mention of a statement that was made by Joseph in Parliament.
Yes.
Let's listen to it.
Thank you.
Honourable members, when it comes to the question of voting, it is very clear. Any time any of the deputy speakers or any other member elected to preside is in the chair, that member does not vote. That has never been in dispute. Any time a member is presiding, either a deputy speaker or a member who by necessity is elected from among members to preside, that person does not vote.
Well, so that's the first deputy speaker, Honorable Jose.
That's why I said I want my 1 minute bite.
Indicating that when any member of parliament sits in the seat of the speaker, to administer any of the processes, particularly regarding the vote, he does not.
It's a convention.
Vote.
It has no legal basis.
George contends that. So this is what we're referring to.
That's exactly what I was saying.
In wrapping up, yes. I want you to box this for me. You in the minority.
I need to take my 1 minute.
Yes. No. We'll take that. Okay. You in the minority rejected this e-levy.
Yeah.
There are arguments to suggest that we already have on our hands.
Yeah.
If today you inherit this government,
Yeah.
the fiscal pressures are things you're going to have to contend with. You have to find the money. You have to find the revenue. In fact, there are estimates that show that by close of year, in a couple of days, we're likely going to be running debt to GDP that may exceed 80.8%. If some of these measures are not taken in place. And that breaches, pre-HIPIC levels we had as far back as 1999. So whether it is left or right, there are implications for a rejection of a levy like this. And I contend that it's not okay to just reject it. But it is a fiscal policy of government that's before you. If you reject it, what are the alternatives for closing the gap in the current budget as we have it? And what were your pronouncements, as a minority, at the select committee level?
Well, Patrick, I will answer that, but it's important that in discussing...
No, you can wrap up.
Yes, in discussing, the problem we are faced with, we do not ignore how we got to that problem.
Right.
Because it is when we address how we got to that problem, then we can be assured that we have learned lessons and will not repeat same mistakes. But the point I needed to make, Patrick, is that, first of all, like I said, the spectacles may not be very pleasant, but I think we must be thankful as a people that we have the opportunity to disagree, and disagree strongly, in a democratic way. As a people, we must be happy to have that opportunity as we speak. I know some people who are cynics will say these are the reasons why they don't have confidence in politics and in democracy and all of that. But as we speak, there are nations that are fighting, and putting lives on the line to have the opportunity to experience democracy the way we are experiencing it.
Right.
So we must be proud that we have what we have. Yes, we can improve as we go along, but when we need to take very serious decisions, you shouldn't be surprised when the disagreements get so strong, because we are all fueled by the love for this country and what is best for it. But my problem is with the kind of leadership that we have currently. I think our president, we have seen, NPP in power before, led by President Kufuor. And the cool-headedness with which he approached issues is not the same as we
He's
have
not
today.
in the chamber, is he?
But he provides leadership for his side. You watch him in Kumasi during their delegates conference. On Friday, Parliament passed the appropriation bill. Parliament passed the appropriation bill. There was no vote, there was no contention over the appropriation bill. But this was a president who, after a day, went to Kumasi at their delegates conference to single out NPP members of parliament for commendation and thank them for passing appropriation bill. And went further to say that the noise about no majority in parliament must be ignored because they are majority. Is that how a leader with his experience, with his age, speaks at this time that you have such heated disagreement over the way forward? Clearly, President Mahama was right when he said he must stop the rabble-rousing. Because it is the rabble-rousing approach that is infecting even those in government to listen to nobody, not civil society, not the ordinary Joe on the street, not even the minority in parliament. Because the president says, thank you for passing appropriation, even though it took the whole of parliament to do that. But he says, thank MPP MPs for passing appropriation. And then he charges them that you are majority. Let nobody tell you you are not majority. Go do it. What kind of leadership is that in this state? So that is why I'm saying that my problem is that the kind of leader we have now is contributing to the lack of consensus that we see. Because we have seen leaders before, and we have seen how they have exercised authority and power. And maybe the NPP and the president and his vice ought to realize that this is a majority without authority. It is a majority without authority in that house. Well, and so it is time for them to begin to work with, all other stakeholders, not just the minority, to ensure that we move forward. And then to your issue of the debt.
If you can just hold on for me.
The debt
for the last 15-20 minutes.
George, let me take two.
I have a number of social media comments. I've just been sitting here idle.
There are some viewers who are sharing their views. Yes, I'll definitely come to you. I'll definitely come to you. My colleague Cookie is on standby. Cookie, the Ghanaians watching us. What exactly are they saying? What's going on?
They've got a whole lot to say, starting with this one that says, please let George understand that the people of Sao have no representation in parliament, or they aren't Ghanaians, or the people of Bekwai or Famina are more important. Good morning. Must it always be the first deputy speaker sparking chaos in parliament? Shameless legislators. Wilson from the Volta region sent in that one. Good morning, Patrick, and to your terrorist viewers. Ghana's democracy under President Nana Addo has turned upside down. The same president led a demonstration against VAT, even when the majority then could have chosen to ignore the demonstrators. But we had a listening president at the time, so the bill was suspended. Why can't President Nana Addo do the same? Responsible and reasonable presidents all over the world will think of their citizenry. Nana Akufo-Addo has exposed his incompetence. Triddles sent in that one. And this one says, if the MPP man is there crying for the people of Bekwai, how about the people of Santo Kofi Akpafu and Lolobi who have never had an MP to date? What's good for the goose is equally good for the gander. Asiwome from Ho sent in that one. Now, good morning, TV3. In fact, the Honorable House have done it again against the democracy we practice in this country. The NPP government, led by Nana Addo, are just turning normal practices we all know upside down for their own interest. Logically, how can the first speaker vote to determine majority decisions by dead count when he was not part of the voice vote? This negative, unprecedented behavior of the deputy speaker should be sanctioned to avoid unstoppable chaos in future. This does not speak well of Ghana. We want peace. Victor Rapture from Ho sent in that one. Good morning, dear presenter. Tell my friend from the MPP that by trying to push that bill in, they are pushing themselves out of the rest in 2024 elections. If they don't know. Agberiga from the Upper East region sent in that one. This one says, Parliament of Ghana is very, very shameful. It's high time both sides began to think of Ghana. Shame, shame, shame. Bow your heads in shame. The world out there is watching you. God is going to judge you. Kingsley sent in that one. Patrick, this one says, Is it not intriguing and curious that the very party that promised to move the country from taxation to production is now fighting to impose draconian taxes on us, insensitive and wickedness at the highest rate? Kwesi from Sugakope sent in that one. Thumbs up to the minority group in parliament. This is a fight against oppressors' rule. This government is clueless of the sufferings of the ordinary Ghanaian. They want to collect more so they can spend more on luxury jets. Sir Jan from Agunan Kwanta sent in that one. Patrick, the last one says, the first deputy speaker knows very well that he has no votes, yet attempted to vote. A clear departure from his own ruling that a person presiding does not vote. His action is tantamount to overthrowing the constitution and standing orders of parliament. But the minority did the needful. The NDC MPs deserve a Star of the Volta award for fighting for Ghana. BT Sly at Nadoli Kalio sent in that one. Back to you, Patrick.
Cookie, the last message there, you know, overthrowing the constitution
and parliamentary standing orders.
I know that sounded a little too colorful.
I know, right?
A little too colorful for
I
me.
know, right?
Thank you very much, Cookie, for bringing us up to speed on what Ghanaians are saying. George,
Yes,
I'll come to you. Clearly, there are a lot of Ghanaians who have questions for the MPP.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying that. You heard those comments that are coming through, essentially questioning the moral ethos of the government of the day, people questioning the character of the president, etc. I think Alassane Suini as well has outlined some of that. How do you react to that?
Yeah, the president is focused, he's apt, and he is himself. In fact, some of us even think the kind of the person Nanado that with you, he's too sober now. I'm telling you, some of us with it that now he's so sober. You get it?
If you can allow George,
the vibrant Nanado that, you know, a lot of people thought, you know, things are going to be tough. You know, the no-nonsense attitude. He's so tolerant today. He's so tolerant of freedom of speech. And this is a man who had been so vilified that, you know, people were pushing him to go to court. He said, no, it's against his spirit to take a media house to court for maligning him. Let me come to the matter proper. You see, the speaker said, the first deputy speaker said, those who had sat in that chair had not voted. Didn't mean they didn't have the right to vote.
No, that's what it
is. Because if you settle that, it's a convention. The constitution says the speaker didn't have original nor casting vote. That's the speaker. Now, the member of parliament who represents is sitting in for the speaker. And that day he said he wasn't the speaker. He was right. The minority were fighting him. Okay? So these are matters that, no, standing orders, I'm coming there. Standing orders are a creature of the Constitution. Okay? It is a creature of the Constitution. Okay? And so if there's something in the standing order which is at variance with the tenets of the Constitution, it's, you know, it cannot stand over the constitutional tenet. So we need to get that clear. Then let's look at these issues properly, all of us. All of us, the e-levy, this government, the president, yes, he said the president thanked the majority side. Yes, because he was in a meeting with them at the conference. He was there. He says, thank you for what you did. Maybe when he meets you, he will thank you too. You get it? So wait for your time. He will meet you and he will say thank you to you.
Goodness.
You get it? He was meeting his people. You get it? No. Let's get that clear. You get it? But the issue too, he knows that the finance minister and other leadership of parliament have engaged the minority, civil society, others extensively on this e-levy matter. Do you know that the government and the finance team and co have engaged the telcos extensively to the point that there's almost an agreement of a 25% reduction on the telco side, okay, which will cushion up for this so that the ordinary Ghanaian will not bear the brunt so much as, you know, we are talking about.
Can the government do without the e-levy?
You see, I have said so. It will be difficult because the finance minister has made it clear that we need it to be able to cushion things. And looking at, you know, the projections that have been made, okay, we are looking at raising about 100.1 billion. Okay, in which is we are pushing towards 20% of tax revenue, which is the ideal thing. As of 2019, we're around 12.2%, which is not too good.
Tax
and African average is around 16.4%.
Yes.
Okay, and so if we want to, and then two, look at the debt profile. You both just said it, that if we don't take time, by close of year, we are looking at 80.8, okay, and which is not too good for all of us. You know, that debt to GDP ratio. And so if that is the case, should we continue to pile up the debts the way it is, or we need to look for alternative ways? And people have made the argument that we need to expand the tax net. And I think the e-levy is a process of tax expansion. It is. Because there are a lot of people. You are an IT guru. You know, you do a lot of operations on the platform. You know what goes on there. You get it? You know what goes on there. And you know the volume of business transactions. According to the deputy minister, the Minister of State, Charles Adubuahi, last year alone, the volume of transaction on the digital platform was over 500 billion Ghana cedis. The world average, according to the 2022 budget, Ken Ofori-Atta, paragraph 309, he said, the world over in 2016, digital platform transactions alone was $11.5 trillion. And by 2025, it's projected to be 23 trillion. And you say, as a government who seeks to bring development, our myriad of young people working on the streets without jobs, okay? We want roads and others, and we want development projects to go on. How do we raise the revenue, Patrick? Okay, and so we have engaged all civil society, minority and co, but it's like they are being a bit, forgive my choice of word, intransigent. Okay, but the painful aspect is that when we brought the communication service tax in 2006 or 7, okay, under President Kufuor, they did the same. They were all over the place. When they took over power in 2009, do you know what they did?
What did they do? Tell me.
They increased it.
Yeah, but when they were leaving power,
let me talk about the VAT argument.
When they were leaving power in 2016, your debt profile was not inching 80%, was it?
No, the debt profile was 56.1%.
So almost 57%.
How did we
escalate?
You know COVID. You know it. And we had to do a lot of things for the country. And you know, if economic activity is ground to a halt for 3 weeks running, and do you know the economic effect on any given economy? And it is the world over. Okay? And so let's not belittle what COVID did. If some people were there, this nation would have been in the doldrums.
Patrick,
I'm telling you.
Patrick, so you see,
that's
30 seconds. George, I'll allow you to exhaust. 30 seconds. I need to wrap up on that.
I was making the point about how we got
argument.
to a situation where our debt to GDP is over 80% currently. Look, first of all, the Auditor General report recently has just revealed to us that about 8 billion is what was wasted or misapplied. We all are witnesses to the corruption that I believe Nana Akufo-Addo has demonstrated his tolerance for over the years.
Oh, come on.
And if we do not address the wastage and the corruption and only seek to be burdening the already burdened Ghanaian to pay more taxes, it is going to be like just pouring water in a basket. It's going to be like pouring water in a basket. This is a government that has had more resources than any other government in our history.
We have brought an innovative move to
this is a government. Despite COVID, this is a government that has had more resources than any other government in our history.
It's not true.
If even with all those resources they have had, even under COVID, they got 2 billion from the World Bank. Our oil revenue increased from about 4 billion to about 20 billion. If they have not been able to manage all of this, if they have not been able to manage all of this better, what is the assurance that if they get this, they are going to do any better?
They will do better.
So we are saying that let's address the issue of corruption. Let's address the issues of wastage. And let us acknowledge the fact that Ghanaians are already overburdened. Look, in the last budget, 2020, Patrick,
the reality is this.
Yes.
You have a fiscal document before you, which has shown you where the pressure is.
Yes.
I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
Those are systemic things that need to be fixed within the PFM system to ensure that the leakages are dealt with in time. I'm saying that if I hand you the country to run today, You have a fiscal gap that needs to be closed. Your debt to GDP
Where are you
is
taking
80%. You have to find the money from somewhere.
Stop the profligacy.
That's systemic.
No, it's not that systematic. Look, go and look at Office of Government Business and the money that is allocated to that, and what we have always gotten from that.
George Alan,
Cut the expenditure. We are saying cut the expenditure. Cut the appetite for luxury jets and the like. Cut those appetites and make a saving. Those are not systematic. Patrick, it doesn't take any system overhaul to tame your appetite for luxury jets.
It always gets heated when we talk about e-levy and talk about what's happened in Parliament and the fiscal and economic management policy of government. It always gets heated. But at the end of the day, I trust that you as the ordinary Ghanaian will be able to bring you insights from parliamentarians and also, decision makers in government. A few announcements quickly. So the segment we have, Johnny's Bite, will be on hold until after the Christmas, and so take note of that. And my colleague Johnny Hughes will be in studio after Christmas to bring you all of those details as well. And there are some very interesting personalities as well who have some birthday celebrations today. I'll quickly run through them. We have Senior Lady Deacon Nanama Dankwa Smith of the Royal House Chapel. We understand today is your birthday. Happy birthday, ma'am. Do enjoy the best of today. Frank Hudson, who is also the compliance manager for DVLA in Kumasi. We understand today is your birthday as well, sir. Do enjoy it. And I suspect I'll be bringing this. I'll be bringing your
my Bolga friends.
You're greeting your Bolga friends. We send
friends.
George. We send the regards to them.
Yeah, that's how I'm in smart today.
I will bring this segment to a close. I was joined by Honorable Alhassan Suini, who's a member of Parliament for Tamale North constituency, and George A.C. Boateng, who is the...
It's not part of mine. It's the senior one.
It's the senior one that is. Okay, right.
Mine is George Kwejoisi.
George Kwejoisi. I keep confusing you with him, but I suspect there's no harm.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
So George A.C., he is the communications director for the National Disaster Management Organization, NADO. Gentlemen, thank you for spending your time with us this morning and for all the insights that you have shared with us. I would take a break here, and when we come back, the rest of the show.
Are they going back to pass it or they find it?
Water gives life. Water is life. Enjoy the pure, refreshing taste of Awake purified drinking water, which comes in a uniquely designed bottle with a lemon green tap. Water is your perfect way to stay hydrated. And remember, for every bottle you buy, an amount will be donated to the National